Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We've got Doug Armstrong coming up here of the St. Louis Blues and also the GM of Canada for the Four Nations face-off and the Olympics. And I'm curious, obviously he's really, I'm sure, honored to get the job, and he's excited for it. But, there's a lot to get into there with Doug, like how he handles his own players, how he handles the, Four Nation event next year compared to the Olympics, where I think it's pretty clear the Olympics are more important.
That Four Nations is in the middle of the season, right?
Yeah, it's an NHL run thing. They're shutting down. Instead of an all-star break, it's going to happen over the course of 7 days, I think. So everyone will play each other once and then get to the finals and take it from there.
And that's not a game of perfect either, right? Because you'll have – like a guy like Draisaitl's not available in that, right? Like, some of the top tier guys of the league won't be playing in it just based on only Four Nations, type of thing.
It's not just a clever name.
It's not a game of perfect, though. No, but it is. Like, there will be some complaints about it. You think about it. It's
Noodles, that's 2024. Everybody's going to complain about everything.
I understand that, but rightfully so. Like, when you want best on best, and that's what we're looking for, it's that one's not best on best. That's going to be close to it.
Yeah, the Russian thing hangs over the whole scenario.
Exactly.
It's, again, replacing an all-star game effectively, so you got to do it quickly within a week. I think we'd all concede the four outside of Russia. Russia would be in it. If you were picking four nations that represent international hockey, it'd be Canada, U.S., Russia, 1, 2, 3. And I'd say probably Sweden 4, Finland 5, Czechia 6. Like, you can go down the list. There's been other countries over the course of history that have kind of chimed in, come and gone, and made a big impact. But without Russia, that's going to stand out. And I still don't think we have an answer on what's going to happen in 2026, in terms of Russian players and whether or not Russia will be represented at that point. But we'll get into it with Doug because, he's also concentrating on his own team right now. Like, the Blues are in a playoff chase.
Yeah, 4 points out.
Yeah, I mean they're chasing down Vegas at this point, and he's down at the GM meetings, and there's a lot going on in terms of what's happening in the National Hockey League right now. We were talking about it last hour with the Leafs. Leafs are in action tomorrow and Wednesday. Marner's not going to make the trip. Lyubushkin's not going to be there tomorrow. I doubt he plays on Wednesday. He could, but the Leafs are in a pretty good spot. I know there's always different things you can poke at, and that applies with basically every team in the league, but it could be a lot worse. You could be on the outside of the playoffs looking in, like St. Louis is right now, or you could be one of the bottom two teams. Like San Jose and Chicago, it's not a lock they even get to 50 points. Like, I'm not sure it's a lock, or 60 points, I think maybe. I was looking it up earlier this morning, where, like that, you talk about McDavid chasing awards and Matthews trying to get to 70. Like, I would like to believe in the room, let me look this up quickly, that both of those teams...
San Jose's got 39 points.
Yeah, it's not a lock to get to 50. That's what I thought. Like, San Jose, it's probably...
39 points?
They have 39 points. And we should ask FanDuel, Doogie, shoot a note to FanDuel, see if they can give us odds, even hypothetical odds, on San Jose getting to 50 points.
Dude, that's a rebuild, but that's one where next year, like, you have to... Everyone in the organization has to say... you got to get better, or else fans are going to just say no thanks.
Look at their goal differential.
Obviously, it can't be worse, but you can't throw that out there 2 years in a row, man.
So
that's insane.
Their goal differential, like a lot of times for the most part, you talk to coaches and stuff like that. Usually, the teams that make the playoffs have a plus goal differential. It's close. Like some teams that are on the cusp, I think Tampa may not be, or Tampa's plus 10. Like Philadelphia's minus 11. They're a playoff team right now. I'm sorry, minus 6. But you look at San Jose, minus 120 goal differential. Like
that's crazy. That's worse than an expansion team, and they've been in the league for 35 years.
120.
Yeah.
Like, that is now Chicago's minus 92. But
minus 120 is
minus
crazy.
$120.
Yeah, that's through 67 games. And like I would think it would be, you get a lot of plus money on the idea of them getting to 60 points, and I don't think Chicago's far off. And Chicago's got Bedard, but they're not much better. Like, without Bedard, and he's almost been a point a game, and the injury obviously popped up. Chicago was kind of right there with San Jose. Like, it's that bad. It's that ugly. But, our next guest doesn't have to worry about that. His team's playing really well. His team's making a push towards the playoffs. That would be the St. Louis Blues. And he's got another team now on the docket. And that would be Canada next year at the Four Nations Face-Off and then the Olympic Games in 2026. Here's Doug Armstrong joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How you doing, Doug?
Very good, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. Congratulations. I'm sure this didn't come up as a surprise to you on Friday when we all heard the news, but it still must be incredibly exciting for you to be the GM of Canada moving forward.
Yeah, it's always a great honor, quite honestly, to be associated with Hockey Canada, and then to be the manager of the Olympic team in 2026 is I guess it's a dream come true. I was slated to do it in 2022, but it didn't happen. So maybe a little unfinished business, but I'm looking forward to taking one last gasp at it and then right off into the sunset.
Doug, is it one of those things that's a positive, stressful things? I mean, there's so many great talents in Canada. Just the selection process and who to take and how to form the team. It's great dealing with so many great players, but the stressful picks, it's one of those things you must enjoy doing.
Yeah, I call it a high-class problem. And it's funny though, because you do it in stages, or following Steve Yzerman's lead and what we did at the World Cup. Your first stage is picking, some support staff, and then it's picking the coaches and the training staff, and then, quite honestly, probably we're all going to be able to pick 80% of the roster. It's the last 20 where the debates are going to come in, and there'll be different opinions, but those are usually the guys that can make or break your team, and so. It's a joyful process, and I enjoy it because when I help Steve in 10 and 14, you go to the game and you're watching different players that you normally don't watch. Like I never really used to go watch Tampa thinking Steven Stamkos was going to be available. So you just focus on different guys. So when you're doing this, it gives you another group of players to watch. It's very exciting.
Well, and Yzerman, that was a big topic of discussion, especially in 14, as you're aware of, Doug, with Marty St. Louis and him making decisions on his own players, and Stamkos, his own guy that year, suffered a tough injury earlier in the year, and it, from afar, it looked like Stevie was really, really stressed out on that. And I'm curious, how you can learn from that experience, how you can approach it yourself, where there's guys on your own team in St. Louis where you got a chance to make a dream come true, and I guess, this might be overly dramatic, but also a chance to break some hearts. And it's your own guys. And when the Olympic Games come and go, you go back to St. Louis and they got a battle for you. How do you handle that?
Yeah, well, actually watching Steve go through it, I felt for him. But I think when you go into this and you understand that your job is to work for the country and pick the best players, and everything has to go to picking the best team. And as we said, there's going to be guys that should be on the team in some people's opinions that aren't. And you're only right if you win.
Yep.
If you don't win, you're wrong anyway. But that is the hardest part is not so if it's Steve and if it's a player on your own team, it's harder because you have to deal with that player. But there's also guys that may have been on past teams and aren't on this one or whatever. But you sort of sign up to make those decisions. It's like. Just like our day job, you get paid to at some point take the emotion out of it and do what's right for the crest on the front of the jersey. And I think if you do that, you can sleep at night knowing that you're doing the best you can do for the right reasons.
Doug, you mentioned, getting down to the 80% looked easy, or not easy, but it seemed to fill in the holes. But the 20% is where the spirited debates maybe come in. And is that where maybe you get managers that are fighting for their player, or fighting for, a player that they believe should fit on the team, and then you have differing opinions and you kind of all just sort it out in the room?
Yeah, I'm not. It's not fighting for your player. It's fighting for players you know the best.
Right.
So, like with Alex Pietrangelo in 14, to me, he was a no-brainer. Now we hadn't won championships. We hadn't gone deep. We hadn't done a lot of things that we did. Going to the semifinals in 17 and the finals in 19 and winning. We hadn't accomplished that. And so when you would fight for certain players, and then again, make a passionate case. It's and let everyone else make it in, and that's when the manager has to decide with the head coach on what the best team is. So I don't think it's. I think it's just fighting for what you know, and then respecting everybody else's opinion too. I think that's key, and that's why you want to get out and scout games and get to. You want to get that long list into a medium list as quick as possible, and then you're always going to have the crazy Ivan, as I call him, the guy that pops out of nowhere. And Drew Doughty was that guy in 2010. Like he, at 19 he went to the World Championships, and I was part of that staff that took him. And you're going, Jesus, is he old enough to be at the Worlds? And then all of a sudden, he's great at the Worlds, and he's on the Olympic team in 10. Like so you never know who's going to pop up and who's going to be that guy. So you want to be prepared, and the way to be prepared is to do your homework and scout.
Doug, Canada always in the past have seemed to have that kind of just megastar between the pipes, whether it be Bobby Lou or Marty Brodeur, Carey Price. I mean, I'm not going to ask you if you're concerned about Canada's goaltending, but we're forced to kind of debate, is it a problem area? Like, is that something you think about with Canada goaltending moving forward?
Well, this has been my stock answer, that if you go back to 2014, there's only been one goalie that's not Canadian to win the Stanley Cup as a starter. So we're finding guys that when they get on the team that has a chance to win, they find a way to get it done. So we don't have the Brodeur or Patrick Watt or Eddie Belfour. But quite honestly, if you look around the NHL, there's not really many, besides the guy in Tampa. It seems to fluctuate on who the best goalie is year in, year out. You have guys that pop up, and then other guys pop up. And I truly believe and Jamie, you could probably know this better than I. It's not that the guys fall back. I think the difference between the top goalie and another goalie isn't as great as it is from the number one center to the fourth line center. I think all the goaltending now is so good that you're going to see fluctuations in who's having good years or bad years. But I know the Canadian goalies in the Stanley Cup playoff is good enough, they find a way to get the job done.
Doug, I just got to say, I had to ask the question because of how many times people we work with have asked us. So I had to give it to you at least one time. So there you go. I'm sorry.
You're a martyr. You're a martyr. We had to take one for the team.
You took one for the squad. I appreciate that, you guys.
Absolutely. With Doug Armstrong, of course, the president of Hockey Ops and GM down in St. Louis, and the GM of Team Canada at the 2026 Olympic Games. And what else we get to do, and this is a big part of the fun for, I think, all Canadians, is try to put together their mock lineups, and then also who plays up the middle, who plays up the wing. And I'm curious, obviously you're going to hire a coach well before you make an announcement on this, but how often, like, yourself and your team are going to be thinking like that? In other words, McDavid, can McKinnon play on his wing? McDavid, do you bring Hyman because of what he's doing in Edmonton with him? Like, how often do you have to consider not only these are the best players and we can put together 4 lines and 3 deep pairings and a starting goalie, but also mesh, chemistry, who can play in the wing? Like, how big of the conversation, and how often does that have to come up between now and 2026?
Well, that's going to be the interesting part, because since 16, so if you go to 10, then you go to 14, then you go to 16. We missed 18 and 22. So those synergies that you see every 2 years or every 4 years are gone. So, and a lot of those players are gone. So I know that my experiences are you think this guy's going to play good with that guy. And so you bring a guy thinking, they have synergy. But my experiences are you put 2 great players together, and that's better than 1 great player and 1 above average player. They're going to figure it out on their own. Now, there's certain cases, like if you look at the 2 defensemen in Colorado, they play great together. That seems to make sense right now. Mm-hmm. But you never know what it's going to like in 2 years. So I guess there's no real clear-cut answer. You want to take the best players, but you do want to see how guys play together. And now when you see them play together on their club teams, on their NHL team, that gives you an idea. But also, when you take a great player and you put another great player beside them, they usually figure it out. One thing Canada's been able to do over a number of years is it looks like there's a ton of centermen on all these teams, because centermen are able to go to the wings certainly easier than wingers to the center. So you can I think you can see this. Okay, well, we can put that guy on left wing. He's a centerman, but you can see the synergy in that. So but it certainly goes into the equation when we're picking the team, and that's when you really need to have good synergy with your coach to be able to get his feeling on how he's going to use them. Because it's like, now this is like with your NHL team. You can have you and your scouts can have the greatest plans, but if the coach ain't buying in, it don't really matter.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you have players that you see positioned a certain way. The coach shares some of those values to make sure that the guy has the best chance to succeed.
Do you have a timeline on the coaching staff and kind of a plan of attack in terms of how you want to handle that?
Yeah, we do, and I think that's what Hockey Canada was hoping to accomplish by naming a management lead or whatever. Is that my job responsibility is going to be to help select a GM for the World Championships coming up in 24-25 and the GM for the Four Nations. And so we're going to do that in steps. We're certainly going to name, our goal would be to name the GM of the World Championships this year in the next few days. After that, we would like to name our Four Nations manager prior to the playoffs, and then that coaching staff right after the playoffs, so they have time to prepare. And then I think what we'll probably do is wait and hold off on our coaching staff to see how the Four Nations go. But as I said, like the best laid plans can sometimes change, and that's a roadmap going in. But something might change where we get together and we say, you know what, let's just make sure we have that continuity in their coaching staff and make that decision. And Ryan Getzlaff's on our staff now, and it's great for me as a non-player that didn't play an issue that had Getzy on there. And I said, how important is it to have? And he said the training staff is very important, because when you get to this event, if the trainers are at the Four Nations, and let's say 70 or 60 to 80% of those players are there, like they know what to expect. So you want to make the comfort level, and as much as you want it in coaching, you certainly want it in that support staff. And so these are things that someone like Ryan Getzlaff can bring on, how the room is affected, what makes a transition easiest. And that's why I'm really fortunate to work with Getzy, that's won everything under the sun, to give me the player's perspective on putting a team together, not only on the ice, but in everything that goes up to the event and at the event.
How did Getzlaff pop up on the radar, Doug? Is it just, did he reach out to you and said, I'm interested in this? Or it seems like he's been relatively quiet. How does he just appear in a role like this?
Yeah, well, it was my thought process was, you know what you don't know, and you want to bring people in to fill out the canvas of things you don't know. And I saw Steve Yzerman in 10 and 14 to be able to talk to the players and say, this is what I experienced, this is what you know. And so what we were looking to do is get someone that was recently retired, that had played an international event, that still knows today's players, so he can go in and have a conversation with them. I was fortunate enough in 2016 to have Rob Blake on the World Cup stage to do that for us. He'd done everything under the sun, recently retired, had a rapport with the players, and could walk through things that they're going through from the been there, done that. And when you look at a guy like Getzy, he's recently retired, he's won a championship, he's won, like as I said, everything under the sun. So I thought for me, for the holes in my resume, I want to fill those in, and I couldn't find a better guy than Getzy to work with. So it was just basically looking at guys that had those credentials, and that I knew from a distance, like I've worked with him on, but not personally, and then getting a chance to talk to him, and he seemed like a really good fit once I got to talk to him.
Army, we were talking about it in the 4:00 hour about the general manager meetings, why they're not in Cheyenne, Wyoming, or in Edmonton, or we feel like your productivity would be a little bit more. What is your thoughts on always in a beautiful place that the guys actually get some work done, or is it more kind of social and a little bit of golfing and relaxing a little bit after the deadline?
Is it like spring training where you guys want everything wrapped up by 11 a.m. or what?
Well, you know what? We do get things wrapped up early in the day, but I think the most productive things at these meetings are the social events. You get to know everybody. I always find it easier to make a trade when you have a relationship with somebody, or to bounce ideas off on how the game is at, how's it growing, are there concerns ahead? Like you always want to try. You always as a manager of a team or working in the league, you won't, your attempt is to stay one step ahead of the next problem. And I think when you're in a boardroom with 32 guys, not everyone's comfortable to talk, but when you're on the golf course or you're having dinner or you're out by the pool and you're having a beer, the conversations just flow differently. And so, could we do it in Edmonton? Sure, but I think the guys would rather do it here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I think you're on to something there. And I mean, it's got to be interesting just having those kind of poolside chats, chats around the green or whatever. When you guys are battling, like your team, the St. Louis Blues, you guys obviously made a tough call. You made a tough decision earlier in the year, making a coaching change, but you've been red hot recently. Noodles, you were saying it earlier. Jordan Binnington is absolutely standing on his head. He's been on fire.
It's been great.
He's been great. I mean, you guys you're right there. I mean, how do you feel about how the Blues, your team, got to this point, and the likelihood that you guys can maybe push it over the line still and maybe make the playoffs?
Well, I'm going to answer that in two different parts. Is one of the reasons we have the GM meeting after the trade deadline. We used to have it before, and guys weren't focused on it because they were focused on getting their team ready. And so now you come to the managers meeting, good, bad, or indifferent. You screwed up your team as much as you can. There's nothing more you can do. So the ideas flow a little bit better. But when you're asking about the Blues, this is where a transition team is. Your good games are really good, and your bad games are probably worse than you're used to. And so, we were 4 points up on Nashville with 2 games in hand. I think it's 13 games ago. I know. They came into our building. They'd lost 9-2. We could have put a fork in them, gone 6 points up with 2 games. They win that game. They haven't lost since.
Right.
What we've done is we've lost the ability to control our own fate. So what we have to do is we have to win as much as we can, and we need teams to lose. You never want to be in a position when you're counting on other teams to lose, but we put ourselves in that spot. But I give our guys a ton of credit. They're 4 points out. We play, and the one thing I like about being 4 points out is that we're 4 points out and have to catch one team. You don't have to jump 3 or 4 or 5 teams. So we control our own destiny in the sense that we only have to catch one team. We don't have to jump 3 or 4. But sometimes you run out of runway. So every game is a must-win now for us. And you wish some of those games that you let slip through your fingers in October, November, December. These are the times, I think, when you look back and say, guys, we weren't lying to you. This is a big game. Let's not screw this one up because those points are so valuable.
No question about that. Well, it's great of you to join us here. We know you're busy down there, and it's been I'm sure a whirlwind, 72 hours or so. But congrats on, getting the gig, the GM for Canada in 2026. Good luck to your Blues coming down the stretch, and really appreciate you doing this. Thank you, Doug.
Guys, I always enjoy listening to you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate that. There's Doug Armstrong of the St. Louis Blues and Team Canada joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. So a lot to unpack there. One thing that stood out to me, and I've never thought of it this way, he was just talking about a team in transition where, and I've been caught up on this before. I remember when the Leafs were awful and they were turning things over. And you look at their wins and you'd be like, man, it actually looked pretty good. This worked out okay. Maybe they're better than we think. And he just said that your bad games are worse than you're used to. Right. So in other words, he's like, that's where you determine how bad you are. Like, not when you play well and win some games. It's when
your bad ones are 7-2 spankings.
Horrendous. And that's the thing. Like the good teams, like the Leafs now, the Bruins, the Rangers, they lose, but they lose 4-2. And it's like, all right, you're disappointed. That wasn't good, but you had a chance. When you're bad, and St. Louis isn't, they're a middle-of-the-pack team right now, but San Jose, Chicago, when they lose, when they're bad, it is horrendous.
Yeah.
Like, it's, wow, I can't believe that. And that's a really interesting detail about how I think managers probably evaluate their team. It's not about what they do at their best. It's how bad does it look at their worst. And
well, he's seen a lot of hockey, right?
He sure
he's
has.
been through it all. So, a lot, we forget sometimes, like us in the media, the fan bases, like we have the great highs and the great lows. Like managers are a little bit more, kind of just measured. I guess they've kind of seen it all. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. So they're able to deal with the ebbs and flows and talk about it too. Like that seemed like a measured comment where he's like, hey, I've seen. We're controlling our own destiny type of thing, but we need some help. Like he was very matter of fact of like where they're at, and guaranteed he's had to have that conversation with ownership. Like if the owner's probably calling him saying, what do you think's going to happen? Well, we need some help here, but we control our own destiny. We're 4 points back of Vegas. And, he's probably laying things out. Well, Vegas might be a better team on paper, but we have a better schedule. Like, to me, it's just kind of the emotions out of it. He's just kind of matter of fact.
Yeah.
I wonder I don't know if those guys would ever talk about it, but the quality, like if they're going to bring in 2 more teams, and I have no idea what expansion's going to look like, but if that happens, Hayes, we've used the term the league is already watered down. Like every team's got 6-7 guys that are high-end players. I mean, there's not 10 awesome goalies in the league, and you want to have 2 more teams? Like, I don't know what that product's going to look like, man. And I think if they're going to have these type of meetings, it's something that needs to be discussed. Because what the hell is the quality of play going to be like?
Well, it's going to get worse.
No kidding.
They're going to drag everyone down.
And I get it. The guy's going to pay $1 billion to be in the league, whatever they're going to pay. But it's like,
and the Players Association too, right? Because it's more jobs. So
cash is king, guys. I'm sorry.
I get it.
The PA is going to be like,
we're going to be on panels saying,
"Oh, it's going to be awful." And then why would they stop at 34? They'll go to 36. Eventually, they'll be 40 by the time we pass out.
OverDrive will be long gone by then, but there will be 40 teams at some point.
Yeah.
It might be 20 years from now, but it's for me, it is growing. But
I got 20 years of OverDrive in me.
All right,
fair
enough.
I got it. We'll ride all the way to 40. Right till 40, man.
We'll all be like the silver foxes. I'll have no hair left.
Right.
I mean, it'll be, you will be Pat Quinn. You will be like white.
I love it.
Hayes,
40th team.
When are you going to get gray, Hayes?
They're coming, Noodles. Don't
I
you worry, man.
I saw a couple sprouting.
When did Billy go gray?
Probably around this time. Like he has darker hair than I do, though, so it stood out a little bit more. But it's coming, Noodles.
You'll
don't
be
like
the
down the
silver
sides.
fox.
I got the the Pauly Walnuts vibe. Like I think I'm just gonna be like chestnut up top and gray down the sides like Wolverine.
Walnuts.
Which I think would be a great look.
Yeah.
I saw a great meme on that. Like there was something online trending like, give me the one character that the cast and crew like perfected. Like could only be that guy, and it was Pauly Walnuts. It's like it could only be that guy.
Yes, that's a great. That's a great
which is perfect.
point out.
Like
I
it
think
was
George Costanza too.
Costanza would be there. Yeah, probably Kramer. Actually, I got into Seinfeld again when I was down in Florida. This is where I know I'm getting old. Speaking of going gray, like things are coming back into my life that haven't been in my life in like 10 years. Like I used to watch Seinfeld all the time. Like, there was a time, like daily, because it was so syndicated. It was on every single day. You'd sit down on the couch at any point in the day. 15 years ago, it was on somewhere. And you're like, I'll stop that. All right, I've seen this episode 1,200 times. I'll watch it again. And I haven't watched it in like a decade, probably more than that. And I flipped it on. It's so much more brilliant than I could even remember. It is such a brilliant show. And it's even more brilliant now because of where we are as a society. Like they crossed way more lines. They were way more offensive. It's just a brilliant, brilliant show.
Hayes, I got to mention before we go to break, the most random Hayes is a fraud comment you can ever imagine. Okay?
Yeah.
I ordered a Hulk Hogan wrestling rubber doll for my background. It's like a Hulkster, because we were talking about wrestling. I like the Hulkster. So I ordered one on eBay. I don't know who the seller is. It's some guy in Idaho or something.
Yeah.
I ordered this Hulkster. You'll see it the next time when I'm in Collingwood. The Hulkster doll comes to my door. I open it up, and it's just got a card. Enjoy the Hulkster, O-Dog. Hayes is a fraud.
You're kidding me.
I swear to God, from a random guy on eBay where I bought a Hulk Hogan wrestling doll.
Oh, my God.
It is trending.
It's out of control.
I told you.
I got
Out
one
of
in
control,
Florida.
man.
I don't know where, but I got one.
I got one at the pool. The guy can't. Well, what I get is you're not a fraud. Right, because people are like,
they don't want to
are
be
nice.
offended.
yeah, hey, there he is. You're not a fraud. I'm like, all right, thanks, Bob. It was a great little stop
It's a
and chat.
weird
Good guy.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have got you're a fraud with a smile and a smirk, and hey, just kidding, love the show. We've spoken about this. It's a term of endearment now, as goofy as it is. The cat's out of the bag. I can't put it back in, but it means people are listening and are fans of the show, and we really appreciate that. I thought you were going to bring up what happened on Saturday night. Did you guys see that there was a couple in the Platinums with a sign that said Bryan Hayes is a fraud at the Leaf game? I will send this to Joe from the Bridge.
I did not see that.
Yes, there was
Did
a
it
couple.
make the tube?
Well, no, because it's a Sportsnet game. They're not putting that up. You think Cuthbert's going to be like, hey, Hayes is oh, wait a minute, moving on. Like, they're not going to do that.
Is there an actual someone got a pic of it?
I had multiple pictures sent to me. I will send
That
it.
has to be. We got to come back.
I want
with
it
that.
as my screen, my Twitter bio, everything.
Because my thing was that's got to be Photoshop. Like, I thought it was someone sending, because it's one of those cardboard signs. The guy on the street corner that's like, make guac free again, or
There's a guy with long hair and a beard where everyone changes up what he's got written on the cardboard.
Like 316
Right.
or whatever. Yeah. John
That's what I
316.
thought it was, and it kind of looks like that, but I don't think so. I think it was a couple that was like, I think we can get on Hockey Night by promoting
That was
Hayes as a fraud.
I get it yelled at. I'm not lying. I was calling the game yesterday, and as I was walking out, just before the national anthem, you go out, and I'm in between the benches. Somebody yells, Hayes is a fraud. And I look back, and I'm like,
It's
all right.
just outrageous, man.
Even
Like-
at the grocery store today, somebody yelled across at Longo's, Hayes is a fraud. I'm
Right.
Like, my
I don't
Lord.
know what to say anymore.
It's
Again,
funny.
yeah, it is. All right, I'll send the one picture, and then I got the other picture too, because it's a couple. It's like they're on a date night watching the Leafs, and they want everyone to know that this is how they feel about things.
I love this.
We'll get to that. We got Chris Johnson coming up. Alex Anthopoulos in an hour. Alex will join us in about an hour. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, every day we announce a current or former Maple Leaf player, and by the end of the week we have a 5-pack of players, and if you call in and name all 5, you're going to see a future Maple Leaf game. And this week we're giving away tickets to see the Leafs play the Devils March 26th, plus we're throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. Today's player of the day is Kirk Mueller. Kirk Mueller.
Oh,
There you go.
All-timer.
Kirk Mueller. Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
Kirk Mueller.
Good Kingston boy.
I played with him in New York. He was he hated it there. Like we were on the Fisherman team or whatever, the Fisher jersey or whatever, and he asked for a trade, and then Milbury was being a jerk about it. And Kirk came on and onto the bus and was like, I've asked for a trade, and I don't dislike you guys. He's like, I just want to move on. And Milbury made such a big deal about it. It was such like so
Milbury, of course he did.
unprofessional about it. Like, it was so weird. It was so
Maybe it was
awkward.
Mike was the reason that he wanted to trade.
Yeah, who knows? It was just so weird because like Kirk Mueller was the epitome of class. Just a great guy.
Great guy.
Milbury like made it like he's like, this guy hates you guys. No, he didn't hate us. He just he wanted to trade. Like he wanted to move on. Like It was just so awkward. I remember it just being like really weird. And Milbury, of course, couldn't help himself.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he came to the Leafs from there or the Leafs sent him there. I feel like he maybe came up after
I think he came from the Islanders to the Leafs.
I think so,
wasn't it?
yeah. I think he was traded from the Islanders to the Leafs. Yeah. So there you go.
There was a lot of Isles Leafs trades back in those days, weren't there?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. Well, that's another
Kenny
thing about
Janssen, Wendell Clark,
Absolutely.
Kaber.
Yeah, Kaber. Yeah,
That's
there were
right.
a lot of them. And that's another thing with expansion. You get to 34, 40 teams. It's like, how do you not make trades? But at the same time, like the competition, the trade deadline, you would think like there should be 500 players on the trade bait board. You get the league expanding that much.
Dude, I'm just talking about the quality. Like,
Yeah, it's silly. Going back to Atlanta too, and they haven't committed to that, but it feels like it's moving in that direction. There's no explanation for it.
I'm
None.
scarred. I'm scarred to be optimistic. And somebody could come up with some fancy stat pack about analytics in Atlanta and how it's going to work. But I'm scarred playing in the Southeast Division and going there a bunch of times a year and seeing what was in the crowd. And it was just there's 50 people here, man.
We had this debate the other day. I'm telling you, I'm not that I'm going to be bullish on this, but I was bullish on Vegas. I'm going to be bullish on Atlanta. I'm telling you, Atlanta will work. That city has money. They've got infrastructure. They're going to put the rink in a better place. Like I
Noodles,
think
the rink was right downtown. How much better of a place do they
the
need?
rink stunk. The rink was basically like, I don't know why, it seemed like a shoebox. It was dark. There was luxury boxes on the other side. I don't even know
if the rink was a weird design, what was detracting people from getting in there?
I have no idea. I just feel that Atlanta is a much more developed city from when we played there. Oh, I think it's
a massive
metropolis.
metropolis.
City.
There's a lot of big money there.
A lot of money there. A lot of big companies. I think I believe it will be successful. But I want to be quoted on that, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
But I do believe it will be successful.
Yeah, I mean the difference is there's a history, right? Vegas, there wasn't any. Like literally, there was no sports history. No team had been there. None. Like from a professional level, they got there first before the NFL and now Major League Baseball and the NBA's going. And you talk about something changing. Nothing's changed more than Vegas. Like 30 years ago, Vegas it was 18 plus, 21 plus. It was, there were no kids, there were no grandparents. It was like Sin City. It's not anymore. It's softened. It's about business. It's about the community. They're a sports town now. It's arguably the sports capital of the world. They're real close to it, Vegas. The amount of events they host, they're going to have all these teams. The difference is Atlanta, we've seen it on two different occasions, didn't work out. And, we'll see. Ownership has to be – the difference can be an owner, too. If you have an owner that's got so much money and has connections, and then you sell tickets and luxury suites, and you got to be good. That's another thing Vegas had. Let's clarify that. If Vegas is what San Jose is right now, it's nowhere near as popular, right? And players aren't dying to go there, and coaches aren't dying to sign there. If these new expansion rules are what has changed more than anything. Forget Atlanta, forget business, forget dimensions of a rink. Expansion rules where they look at what Vegas did and what Seattle's done. Seattle made the playoffs a year ago. They're just on the outside looking in this year. They're a pretty good team. They have some players that they like, star players. The league has done everything they can to make sure these teams get off to a good start. And that's where, if you're Columbus, you got to look back and say, we were just doomed from the start. You never gave us a shot. In Minnesota even, it's the hockey state or whatever, all that. But they just never, it was tough for them to get going. And they never arrived. Vegas has already arrived because they had such a head start. And credit to their crew, right? George McPhee and company, they danced circles around the league. That's what they did. They danced circles around the league. They manufactured trades and moved picks and
one
scouted.
Of the best circles ever, man.
One of the great runs in executive history in any sport, no question. Like that, you talk about a documentary. What Vegas did that first year, unparalleled, unbelievable. And it didn't happen in Seattle because the other teams learned, and they'll learn even more when it comes to whoever else comes into the league. But it's going to happen, as we
Vegas
said.
Go to
Money's
a
king.
cup final? Did they go to a cup final in year one?
Year one.
Vegas, absolutely they did. Yeah, year one.
I know they won a cup
They lost
in year
to
6.
the Caps. They lost to Ovi.
Year one.
Year
Brand new team.
one. Yeah, I was there. I was in Vegas. They played Winnipeg in the conference final, I think it was. I think in the conference final.
What the hell were you doing there?
I was down there for a bachelor party. It was ridiculous. And we were staying at, I can't remember where we stayed, but all the dealers were wearing Golden Knights jerseys. It was wild. We landed in Vegas and we made our way right to the strip, right to the casino, and it was like the Golden Knights were everywhere. You went into the gift shop. They were selling the mascot. They were selling hats, jerseys. And that's what they always say about Vegas is what's good for one casino is good for all casinos, right? And I think the same thing applied there with the Golden Knights. It's like if we can make this pop, that's one more thing that everyone else is going to benefit from. So it was almost like all the casinos and all the locals were like, hey, promote it like crazy. Why not? Because guess where they're going to stay when they come in for 2 or 3 days? They're going to stay right here, and guess what they're going to do? Dump money in at the tables when they walk across the rink from the rink, and they've had 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 to 20, 30,
Yeah.
40 drinks, whatever it is. I don't know where you stop on that. But Vegas is Vegas.
Never know.
You never know. You never know. All right, Chris Johnston coming up. Should we show these two guys? Here's my thing.
I need this sign.
It is a cardboard box sign, so I am a little bit concerned we're getting duped here. There's the one guy. Brian, that's on Saturday night. You can see a lot of green in the crowd. The St. Pat's. It was St. Patty's Day. That's what makes me think it's legit.
Is that the same sign?
Yeah, it's the same sign. I'm guessing that's husband and wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, brother, sister, whatever.
Someone just write us and tell us if you saw those two people with those signs to let us know it's real.
I don't know. Sam Cicerello just sent me a note saying I think it was real. Like
what, Sammy was down in the lower bowl just hanging out?
I saw a fan during warm-ups,
yeah.
Saying Hayes is a fraud. Like,
yeah.
I
look at that guy. That guy looks
Look how
like
happy he is to post that sign up above his head.
He's from Sudbury or Keswick or something.
Yeah.
He's down for the night. He's just getting after it, and that's his sign. Bryan Hayes is a fraud, #OverDrive. Well, you made it. Wow. We appreciate that.
I love it.
We appreciate that. All right, CJ coming up. Alex Anthopoulos coming up. We got we got some competition in the podcast game. We'll tell you who's got a new podcast. We'll get to that next. All right, something to chew on brought to you by Boston Pizza coming up in about 10 minutes before CJ joins us from the GM meetings down in Florida. Alex Anthopoulos at 6:30. Can't wait to catch up with Alex. And I'm sure you saw this trending online today, but LeBron James has got a weekly podcast that is now out.
You've got to be kidding me.
I am not kidding you. He's pairing up with JJ Reddick. It's going to be him and JJ. They've already posted a clip. It's already blowing up online. And listen, the power of LeBron is that whatever he does, once he tweets it out or puts it on Instagram, there's millions and millions and millions of people that are going to know it immediately.
Oh, it'll be the #1 podcast on earth.
Yeah, it'll be huge until people listen to it, and we'll see what comes of it. I mean, I'm not going to give an opinion on it. I don't know what it's going to sound like. I don't know what they're going to get into. It's basketball. It sounds like they just want a free-flowing conversation about, basketball. And, like, JJ Reddick's an interesting cat. Like, he was a good player. He was a great college player. Very opinionated. That's the thing. Like, in kind of goes at, modern media and kind of hates the takes and all that kind of stuff. And isn't shy, and I appreciate this, to go at, Stephen A. Smith or Mad Dog. It's like, are you going to have that same energy for LeBron? Like, if LeBron says something you disagree with, because that's how this is going to work, is if JJ Reddick drives it and is poking and prodding LeBron, not doing it intentionally, not doing it, in a malicious way, but if it comes off as JJ's just like, hey, LeBron, or whatever you got, then it's not going to work.
He had an awkward exchange a couple of weeks ago. He absolutely teed off on Doc Rivers, and then the camera went to a different panel, and Doc Rivers' son was on the panel. And his son was just like...
Yeah.
Dude, that was one of the weirdest exchanges I've ever seen in broadcasting.
I don't know.
He just was like, Doc Rivers doesn't even know what he's doing. And then it's like, okay, over to the other guys, and it's like his son on the other panel. I was shocked. It was one of those things where I had to turn it off. I'm like, I can't watch this poor guy. Yeah, it was so awkward, man.
What's weird, though, I feel like LeBron wants in on what the Kelsey brothers have. And the man, like, you know what I mean?
That's what I thought he would do, Noodles. I thought he would do the way of Draymond Green, because I believe Draymond has his own type of production.
Yeah,
it's not affiliated with anybody. That's what I thought he would do. And I guarantee you at one point LeBron said, I am never doing that nonsense.
Yeah.
Just like I sat on the back of the bus with Ronnie Francis, and we both said, Ronnie said first, I'm never going to be in management, and I said, yeah, I'm never going to be in media. And look where we both are.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, listen, there's a lot of prominent members of the NBA, NFL that do it, that do live streams, that do podcasts. It'll garner a massive audience because it's LeBron. But, he's still playing. That's
no
and he's got a lot on his plate.
It's another dent in the armor from his agent, Rich Paul, who says, this guy's so busy and people want his attention 365 days. Oh, so you had to do the podcast. Huh?
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what he's going to create. I don't know if it'll be controversy, but a large reaction if and when he says something. And guess what? We're in this industry. You have to do that. You can't just go on there and be like, hey, that was a good game. That guy's a good guy. No one's going to listen to that. Like if it's a business plan and you want this to work, he has to have opinions, and he's got to be willing to say what's on his mind, including at times speak about his own team. Like I give a lot of credit to Draymond Green. I'm shocked that he keeps doing it. At times I'm like, all right, I'm a little surprised he's deciding to go down that road and speaking on whatever type of altercation happened or losing streak or what's going on with a trade or a coach or whatever. But he does it, and that's what makes it incredibly intriguing and really, really interesting. Is LeBron going to do the same thing? If the Lakers get knocked out in the play-in, what's he going to – I would be like, all right, I want to hear what he's got to say. Yeah. Is he going to say something honestly? Is he going to go – because he doesn't need to. That's the thing. And Draymond doesn't either. Draymond's got $200 million in his bank. He's going to work for TNT if he wants to. Got championships. JJ Reddick's made a fortune. All these guys have made a ton of money. He doesn't have to do it. So I'm just intrigued by what is driving him to continue to try different things within the realm of media when, as you said, at times he's kind of complaining that the media focuses on him too much.
Yeah. But he loves attention, though. That's the thing. Like if he can insert himself into every conversation, he will. That's just LeBron.
He can't stop himself. As soon as he complains about the attention, a week later, it's just like some kind of
podcast.
Or even if it's quieting down in the NBA season, he'll have a hot take on NFL football or the World Series. Like he just can't stop himself.
Yeah, he's doing like NFL picks and stuff. He's got a lot going on, man.
And any big game, man, Super Bowl,
he's on it. LeBron's going to be there, and he'll
be there, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Chris Johnston coming up, and Alex Anthopoulos will join us. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.